Let's review the concept and behavior of the unique clause. We know this clause allows you to indicate the attribute, or set of attributes, whose value should not be repeated in a query output. As a review, a list showing all the categories registered in tourist attractions is requested, but no repeated elements should be displayed. If we ran through the attractions to show the categories recorded in them, we would see repeated elements. The unique clause allows the list to not have these elements repeated. The unique clause also allows associating information with inline formulas. In this example, the base table of the for-each command is the same as the base table of the inline formula. Therefore, the count formula will add from the context an implicit condition in its evaluation. It'll count all attractions for the attribute declared in the unique clause. In this case, category ID. In this way, this source will return the list without repetitions of all the categories, each one with its corresponding number of registered tourist attractions. Now let's see an example of the use of the unique clause in a data provider. For that, let's consider the reservation transaction displayed. A data provider is needed that returns, per day, the total amounts for tour reservations. We don't want to see the date repeated, so we declare the corresponding unique clause followed by the reservation date attribute. In this way, the data provider will return the set of dates without repeated elements, each one with the accumulated total. It should be noted that in a data provider that has repetitive groups that access the database to retrieve values, declaring the base transaction and the where, order, unique, etc. clauses at the level of the collection name, in other words, the external group, is exactly the same as declaring them at the level of the collection item name, in other words, the internal group. If we look at the navigation list of this data provider, we can see that GeneXus adds the corresponding unique clause with the attribute to be considered. We've seen the use of the unique clause in for-each commands and in data providers. Let's now see that it's also possible to use it in the grid of a web panel. So let's consider again the categories and tourist attractions. We're going to design a web panel that shows all the categories that have registered tourist attractions. In the web panel grid, we add the category name attribute. Now, let's think about the same thing we did in the example with for-each. The base table of this grid must be attraction. Therefore, we indicate it in the base transaction property of the grid. But since we see that the grid also has the unique property, we indicate category ID so that repeated categories are not shown. If we look at the corresponding navigation list, we see that it runs through attraction and sets category ID as unique value. Now let us look at the complete syntax of the for-each command, although we should mention that we've not studied all the clauses that we're looking at. It should be noted that the blocking clause, the updating of attributes in the main code, as well as the when duplicate clause are only valid when the for-each command is in the source of a procedure, because only in those objects it's possible to update the database directly. The attributes that appear inside the when duplicate clause, as well as those that appear inside the when none clause, will not be taken into account when determining the base table of the for-each command. As for the attributes declared in the unique clause, including formula attributes, will be processed together. That is, only once in the output. Therefore, if two or more records have the same value for that set of attributes, only one of them will be taken into account. All the attributes in the places mentioned must belong to the extended table of the for each command base table. Finally, let's look at the restrictions on the use of the unique clause. It's not possible to use expressions in the list of attributes declared in the unique clause. Both in the body of the for each command and in the groups of a data provider, outside of inline formulas, only attributes that have unique values regarding those declared in the unique clause can be included. Another very important restriction to take into account is that the unique clause cannot be declared in nested for each commands. So far, it cannot be used to implement a control break. If it's done, GeneXus will display a message like the one shown here.